and jelly spoons new and old to Kohigh Mathy's YouTube channel, a place where retro video games can come to feel loved and safe. But only if they are 20 years old or older, otherwise it's just a little bit weird. Yes, quite. This video was going to be about litter in video games. Load of rubbish. Well, exactly. I thought it was about time we focus on books and what the public are reading. They should be ashamed of themselves. Well, that and March also marks World Book Day. There have been many great video games based on novels, but some have been overshadowed. So today I'll be looking at my top 5 games based on books that you might have missed. Note, I won't be looking at the myriad of games that have been made for such franchises as Discworld, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Sherlock Holmes, Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, and more recently The Witcher. But if you're interested, let's see. Discworld 2, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, in 1994, Lord of the Rings Volume 1 for the SNES, Telltale's Game of Thrones, Dynasty Warriors 3, Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment, American McGee's Alice, the 1993 Wizard of Oz for the SNES, and obviously The Witcher 3. In at 5, a game that you might have thought would have had more games based on it, but I'm always surprised to hear that people haven't ever played it.
The Hitchhikers Go to the Galaxy, text-based adventure based on Douglas Adams' classic series of books. First released in 1984 for the Apple II, Macintosh, Commodore 64, CP/M, MS-DOS, Amiga, Atari 8-bit family and the Atari ST. The Hitchhikers Go to the Galaxy was one of 5 top-selling games for developer Infocoms, and led to a solid gold version being released, with a built-in hint system that was not included in the original game. The game was re-released by Activision in several compilation packages before the rights reverted to Adams. In 2004, the BBC launched a 20th anniversary edition to coincide with the initial radio broadcast of Hitchhikers Go to the Galaxy, the tertiary phase. Sporting a Flash user interface and illustrated by Rob Lord, who also produced the animations for the Hitchhikers TV series, it won an interactive BAFTA award for Best Online Entertainment.
This game gave me hours of enjoyment back in the day. I've read most of Douglas Adams' works and it's clearly had a big influence on me. Whilst text-based adventures can be a bit of a hard sell today, I'd certainly encourage people to give it a go if you've read the books. Taking the number 4 spot is a game that might not be retro, but I seldom meet people. We're in the middle of a pandemic, no one's meeting people anymore. You know this video isn't going to age well if you keep making pandemic references.
Metro 2033, a first-person shooter survival horror game, released in 2010 for the Xbox 360 and Microsoft Windows. The story is based on Dmitry Glukhovsky's novels of the same name. Set in the ruins of Moscow following a nuclear war where survivors are forced to live in the underground metro tunnels, the player controls Artyom, a man who must save his home station from the dangers lurking within the metro.
A good game that breathes life into Dmitry's world. The books themselves don't spend a lot of time describing the world in which it's set, and this game does such a good job of bringing them to life. Number 3, I've cheated a little bit.
The Hunt for Red October.
All of them.
Released in 1987 for the Atari ST, Amiga, Apple II, Apple Macintosh, ZX Spectrum, MSX, Commodore 64 and IBM PC, as well as for the Apple II GS in 1989, the player must navigate the Red October towards US waters whilst avoiding the Soviet Navy. The game is a combination of submarine simulator and strategy game, but it was also a 1990 video game that was based more on the 1990 film of the same name. Released for the Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Atari ST, Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum and for MS-DOS, as well as the 1991 game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, as well as the Game Boy and SNES. The game featured deep-sea combat, side-scrolling action and cinematic sequences. The objective is to evade destruction and eliminate saboteurs. The SNES version was one of the 11 games that used the Super Scope accessory.
When I was younger, I was very into Tom Clancy books, and whilst we've seen his Rainbow Six book go on to be a huge success in the video game world, the Hunt for Red October games are perfect little retro titles that if you've not played but enjoyed the films, I suggest giving them a go. Anyway, back on track now with a game that's anything but on track.
I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a 1995 point-and-click adventure game developed by Cyberdreams and the Dreamers Guild. The game is based on Harlem Ellison's short story of the same title. It takes place in a dystopian world where a mastermind artificial intelligence named Am has destroyed all of humanity except for 5 people who he's been keeping alive and torturing for 109 years by constructing metaphysical adventures based around each of the characters' fatal flaws. The player must interact with the game by making decisions through ethical dilemmas that deal with such issues as insanity, rape, paranoia and genocide.
This game is one of the first games that 100% proved to me that people who used to tell me that video games were just for kids were very, very wrong, or at least just hadn't been playing the right video games. This game, indeed the book that it's based on, pulls no punches. It goes to some very dark areas. If you're a horror fan or want a good example of how to adapt a novel into a game, look no further than this. But hopefully that recommendation hasn't put you off watching the rest of this video. If you're enjoying it, be sure to click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more British humour and retro shenanigans every week. Before I reveal my top spot, an honourable mention must go to
Maid of Sker, a 3-volume novel that was written by R.D. Blackmore and published in 1872. It was the inspiration for the 2019 video game of the same name, a first-person survival horror. Maid of Sker uses several Welsh and British folklore tales as inspiration for the stories told within the game. Sker House, a historical place situated just outside the town of Porthcrawl near Bridgend, Wales, was made famous by the Maid of Sker novels and features heavily in the game. Certainly want to play this Halloween if you haven't already.
And my number one pick is
Return to Krondor, a role-playing game set in Raymond Feist's fictional fantasy setting of Midkemia. Released for Windows 95 on the PC in 1998, the player commands a group of heroes with different attributes, strengths and weaknesses, which the player may upgrade over the course of the game. Feist later wrote a novelisation of the game entitled Krondor, Tear of the Gods.
I don't remember how I came across this game, only that I loved it, and that it led me onto a series of really good fantasy novels. You can still play it today thanks to the chaps over at GOG.com, and if you're in the mood for some retro role-playing, you can't really go wrong with Return to Krondor. Also, if you're a fantasy fan, it's well worth looking up the work of Raymond Feist. Well, there we go, that brings this video to an end, as always.
Here, now, this book you gave me last week, The Bad Woman of Tunbridge Wells, is absolutely disgusting. I've never read anything quite as sordid in the whole of my life. Have you got the sequel?
Certainly, here you go, The Son of the Bad Woman of Tunbridge Wells. Now, where was I?
Hoping that this will get you an Audible sponsorship?
Well, quite. If you think there's a game based on an obscure novel that I've missed, then please do let me know. Maybe it's one I've not come across before. If you enjoyed this video and aren't already, then please do subscribe. Check out my other social media links, as always, in the description down below. And I'll leave you with this thought. Is it better to have loved a short girl than never to have loved at all? Cheerio. See you next week.